Wrestling fans, if you are not sitting down right now, you might want to. Because what happened surrounding WWE SmackDown has created the kind of backstage controversy that cannot simply be erased with a scripted segment or a carefully worded social media post the next morning. Triple H, the man overseeing WWE's creative direction, was reportedly furious after Gunther crossed a line during his confrontation with Nick Aldis, and the fallout has raised serious questions about where WWE draws the boundary between storyline aggression and legitimate danger. The entire situation began with the increasingly bitter rivalry between Gunther and Nick Aldis. Gunther had become frustrated with the constant obstacles standing between him and another championship opportunity. In his eyes, Aldis was not simply the general manager making decisions from behind a desk. He was the person standing directly between Gunther and the opportunities he believed he deserved. Aldis, of course, was no stranger to professional wrestling before taking on an authority role. A former world champion with years of experience, he had already established himself as a legitimate competitor long before putting on a suit and becoming one of the people responsible for running SmackDown. Gunther never seemed particularly impressed. Week after week, the tension between the two men escalated. What began as verbal confrontation eventually became physical, and backstage encounters made it clear that the rivalry was becoming increasingly personal. Gunther's frustration continued to build as championship opportunities slipped away, and eventually, he reached a breaking point. Then came the moment that changed everything. Gunther grabbed Aldis and locked him in a sleeper hold, refusing to release him until the general manager was rendered unconscious. For viewers, it was an incredibly uncomfortable moment. The scene was designed to look violent and uncontrolled, but the reaction behind the scenes reportedly made the situation even more serious. Wrestlers are accustomed to seeing dangerous-looking situations. They perform high-impact maneuvers, take brutal-looking strikes, and put their bodies through incredible punishment every week. But there is a major difference between a carefully controlled wrestling sequence and a situation where someone appears to lose consciousness. That distinction reportedly caught the attention of Triple H. As WWE's chief content officer, Triple H has to consider the bigger picture whenever a segment goes wrong or crosses a dangerous line. He also understands the risks personally because he spent decades performing inside the ring himself. He knows that professional wrestling depends on trust. Every performer has to believe that the person across from them will protect them, follow the plan, and know when to stop. According to reports surrounding the incident, Triple H confronted Gunther and made the seriousness of the situation clear. The message was reportedly that Gunther's position was in genuine jeopardy because of what he had done. That is a major statement when you consider Gunther's status within WWE. He is not an unknown wrestler who can simply be removed from television and forgotten. Gunther has become one of the company's most dominant and recognizable performers. His entire character is built around physical punishment, discipline, intimidation, and the belief that he can dismantle virtually anyone standing across the ring. But that reputation creates a difficult problem. How do you present a wrestler as dangerous without allowing the danger to become genuinely uncontrolled? That is where the situation becomes far more complicated. Triple H reportedly did not fire Gunther. Instead, the threat of losing his position became part of the larger storyline. Rather than simply removing one of WWE's biggest stars, the company found a way to turn the controversy into another chapter of Gunther's character. From a business perspective, the decision makes sense. From a locker room perspective, however, it raises uncomfortable questions. Gunther had been portrayed as someone who crossed a major boundary, yet he was still positioned for another opportunity to climb toward the championship picture. WWE effectively transformed the consequences of his actions into motivation for another major match. The stipulation involving Gunther and Sami Zayn against CM Punk and Cody Rhodes made the situation even more significant. If Gunther and Zayn won, the SummerSlam World Championship match would become a fatal four-way. Think about what that means. A wrestler who had supposedly put his career in jeopardy by attacking a company authority figure was suddenly given a direct route back toward the world title. That is where the debate over accountability becomes unavoidable. WWE is a business, and Gunther is one of its most valuable performers. His matches attract attention, his character has become one of the strongest presentations on the roster, and his reputation as a dominant competitor gives him credibility in major championship programs. But if another performer committed a similar act without Gunther's level of popularity, would the outcome have been the same? That is the question fans and wrestlers can reasonably ask. And then, there is Nick Aldis. Aldis deserves to be considered more than just the authority figure who was attacked. He has a wrestling resume of his own, and eventually chose to confront Gunther inside the ring. Their SummerSlam confrontation carried significant emotional weight. Aldis entered the match with the support of the crowd, and with plenty of motivation, after months of being targeted and disrespected. His transition from authority figure back into active competition gave the rivalry another dimension. Gunther, meanwhile, had one objective: prove that he was still in control. The match ultimately ended, with Gunther using the sleeper hold again, forcing Aldis to submit. From a storytelling perspective, it created a full-circle conclusion. The same move that had created the controversy became the move that allowed Gunther to officially defeat his rival. But that conclusion also creates another uncomfortable question. Did WWE give Aldis a meaningful opportunity for revenge, or did his humiliation ultimately become another tool used to make Gunther look even more dominant? That is what makes the entire story so revealing. Triple H has spent years emphasizing the importance of trust, professionalism, and protecting performers. As someone who knows firsthand how unpredictable wrestling can become, he understands that the audience should believe the performers are in danger, without the performers actually being placed in unnecessary danger. The reported reaction to Gunther's actions therefore makes sense from that perspective. This was not simply a boss becoming angry because a segment did not go according to plan. If the situation genuinely became difficult to control, then WWE had to consider the possibility of an actual injury or medical emergency occurring on live television. At the same time, WWE also had to consider the value of Gunther. That is the business reality sitting underneath the entire controversy. Gunther has built an extraordinary reputation. He has defeated major stars, established himself as one of the most physically imposing wrestlers of his generation, and developed the kind of character that can headline premium live events. His reputation as a career killer is not merely a nickname. It is central to how audiences perceive him, and that may explain why WWE chose consequences without completely destroying the character. Instead of ending Gunther's momentum, the company turned the incident into another test. He had to deal with the possibility of losing everything, while simultaneously proving that he still belonged among the biggest stars in WWE. That approach allows WWE to maintain the illusion that Gunther's actions have consequences, while preserving the performer's long-term value. Ultimately, the Gunther and Nick Aldis controversy is about much more than one sleeper hold. It is about the delicate line between fiction and reality in professional wrestling. It is about trust between performers, the responsibility of WWE management, and the difficult decisions that have to be made when a storyline becomes more intense than expected. Triple H's reported anger shows how seriously those boundaries can be taken behind the scenes. But WWE's decision to keep Gunther in a prominent position demonstrates another reality. In this business, accountability and entertainment are constantly competing with each other. Gunther may have crossed a line, but instead of allowing that moment to end his momentum, WWE turned it into another chapter in his rise. And whether fans see that as smart storytelling, questionable discipline, or simply the reality of doing business with one of the company's biggest stars, one thing is undeniable. The fallout from Gunther and Nick Aldis has created a situation that could have consequences long after the cameras stopped rolling.